Okay, so let's go over the newest members of the Vancouver Canucks and the other promotions that they also made as well. There was an article published on Canucks.nhl.com that goes over all this stuff, but Frank Seravalli's tweet kind of sums it up in a much nicer way to read. It's all segmented here, so it looks cooler. Let's go over the Canucks front office changes from today. Former Florida Panthers and Blackhawks GM Dale Tallon has joined the team as a senior advisor and pro scout. Scott Young joins as the director of player personnel from the Penguins. Dylan Crawford of the Chicago Blackhawks has been named the new video coach, and Ryan Johnson, who just gets it out, back in for Alex Burrows is up in the air, scores, has been promoted to the assistant to the GM. Now, we'll go over each of these individually as the video goes on, but the big one right here is Dale Tallon. A lot of people will go out there and meme a few things about Tallon, like, oh, this guy helped build the Golden Knights, he made that team as good as they were able to be. And with that, that's kind of a joke, because he was never a part of the Golden Knights. In fact, he helped the Golden Knights out by giving them not only Riley Smith, but Jonathan Marchessault as well during the Vegas expansion, so that's kind of a joke in and of itself. But for Dale Tallon, there's a lot of controversy that's been going on around this guy, and a few other things that people have been more positive about as well. Satyr Shah goes out there and talks about how the Dale Tallon hiring is more polarizing, even though there are some pretty good ones in this crop of people. Scott Young, for example, is well thought of around the league, and he should be a nice addition to the front office. We last heard of Dale Tallon when he was with the Florida Panthers, and when he was under investigation for using some racist language as a member of the Florida Panthers. Now, that investigation's conclusion was that he was cleared. There was never any confirmation that he actually said anything that was racially motivated or whatever, but the fact that there was even an investigation done in the first place, and there was word that there might have been something that happened, put his reputation in a very bad light. On that same subject, this is what Patrick Allvin said when asked about the cloud that hung over Tallon's departure from Florida. They spoke with the NHL, and the NHL pointed out that he had been cleared of wrongdoing after an investigation. So, Allvin says, we're really excited to have Dale on board here. Tallon was a member of the Chicago Blackhawks for a long time, and then he also was a part of the Florida Panthers. He was arguably the guy that pretty much built the dynasty Blackhawks from scratch due to his ability to draft a lot of these players and eventually mold them heading into their first Stanley Cup of that period in 2010. Afterwards, though, he was hired by the Florida Panthers as the GM and the ex-vice president of hockey operations. Now, I know a lot of people will go out there and say that Tallon's tenure with Florida was not great. Of course, it was long, but he did kind of exhibit the same strengths that he had before. Good drafting, good developing, it's just what happened when the guys made the team was kind of the problem. In particular, his contract negotiation skills were seen by a lot of people as the biggest problem. You can kind of see that Sergei Bobrovsky contract we talked about a few days ago that was signed by him, and that is arguably the big crux that is cursing Florida at the moment. But at the end of the day, Dale Tallon is here in Vancouver, and he's not going to be somebody who has that kind of authority to make those types of decisions. He is a senior advisor and a pro scout. It is interesting because you would think that because of his tenured success as a regular amateur scout, they would give him some sort of a role in that position, but no, it appears he is on the pro scouting side instead, helping out the team when it comes to evaluating players that they're going to trade for and just being a senior advisor in general. Now, this also was talked about on Donnie and Dolly, that the Dale Tallon hiring is probably just trying to get a buddy a paycheck. Francesco Aquilini talked to him about the president of hockey operations job before the NHL stepped in as well, according to Dollywall, and you also had Jim Rutherford go out there and pretty much give his friend a job in this situation. Here's a tweet from Radio Codex talking about what Brandt said on the show. He basically confirmed as much on Donnie and Dolly that Rutherford and Tallon go way back. It's basically a favor to get him back in the league, and he probably won't be very involved. And so at the end of the day, this is a guy who has had some level of success at the NHL level before. He's had success drafting and building teams, but there have been a lot of problems when it comes to what happens when those players are already on the team. The racism investigation is definitely something you don't want to see, but if the NHL says he was cleared and the Canucks decide to hire him because of it, I mean, I guess that's just where they're going to go with this. Let's go over onto the other hires, though, because if you take a look at some of these other names, they are really interesting to note. Scott Young is the new director of player personnel, and a lot of people would go out there and immediately say that this guy is a very great hire. Why? Because if you take a look at what he did as the director of player personnel for the Penguins, I mean, look, the Penguins have always had themselves a pretty weak drafting record when it comes to quantity of picks and where those picks are in the draft, but it's kind of interesting noting how the Penguins always seem to get these guys out of nowhere that are drafted in like the 4th or 5th or 6th rounds that eventually become actually good players. You take a look at who's responsible for that. Scott Young was one of the guys responsible for making that happen. Now, he wasn't on the team, the Pittsburgh Penguins that is, when you had guys like Rust and Sherry and Guenther breaking in when they first had their cup run, but 2017-18 is when he started, and he was there for quite a while. You could go out there and say, oh man, the Penguins, like Rutherford and Allvin are just hiring all the former Penguins, but I mean, this was a pretty good one. You take a look at the reputation that he had around the NHL was very positive, so this is a good hire for Vancouver. You have yourselves, of course, Dylan Crawford, who is the new video coach. He was the video coach for the Chicago Blackhawks. He also is the son of Mark Crawford, so there you go. I mean, you can't really say nepotism when Mark Crawford is not with the Canucks at the moment, so there's that. And you also have the promotion of Ryan Johnson. As we said, he is the guy who just got it out before it was sent back in for Alex Burrows and up in the air scores. Ryan Johnson is the assistant to the GM. So he is not an assistant GM, he is an assistant to the GM. If the guy needs coffee, if the guy needs certain, I don't know, extra fax paper or whatever, then yeah, he's the guy that's going to go out there and get it. It's a promotion, for sure, but it might be a little bit less important as it seems if you look at this piece of news at face value. Ryan Johnson, though, has been the Abbotsford Canucks GM, and he's been doing a pretty good job when it comes to talking about these guys, developing these guys, and he's been the spokesperson for a lot of Canucks prospect development over the past few years, so it's good to see him sticking around in the organization in this way. Patrick Allvin also said this during the press conference talking about all these hires. He believes the first-year pro players out in Abbotsford will be attending development camp, and he also adds that it's mostly been Coronato and Ryan Johnson who are constructing the development camp roster. So obviously Ryan Johnson is doing other stuff too. He still has all the other things that were on his plate from before. It's just now he's got that title of being the assistant to the GM, which gives him a little bit of a better standing, I guess, within the organization. Coronato, as we have said, has been on this development camp roster as well, constructing it. She's been pretty good with player development, etc., so good to see that going on here with the organization. But these are the newest Vancouver Canucks hirees. Dale Tallon is here. It's good that he's not going to have the opportunity to sign big contracts again like he did with Sergei Bobrovsky, because that was definitely one of the more incompetent parts of his GM body of work. You also have Scott Young, who is the new director of player personnel, Dylan Crawford's a video coach, and Ryan Johnson has been promoted. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about all these hires and promotions. Do you like some of these? Do you not like some of these? Let me know your thoughts as to whether or not you are on board or not. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.